We all go a little mad sometimes.
Did you know I'm utterly insane?
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Look at me, Damien. It's all for you.
Look what you did to him.
Red rum, red rum, red rum.
Welcome back to Movie Mingle. I'm Caveman.
And I'm Maggie.
And we're back with episode 34. And we're doing The Shining from 1980.
Woo.
Ooh, spooky, spooky.
So spooky.
This is our second Halloween special. I mean, it was on the list, but this one is the second one that we're doing in October.
It is sort of funny how, like, Midsommar landed right before the first day of summer.
Yep.
And here we are, The Shining is landing, you know, a little bit
in
before
October,
Halloween.
yeah.
It's kind of weird how when we decided to do this list and set it up that the certain films would
Timing
fall.
just worked out,
Yeah.
and we're like, we're going to start on this date randomly, and then, Midsommar and some spooky.
Some spooky.
The Shining was directed by Stanley Kubrick. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who've seen Stanley Kubrick's stuff, and a lot of people who have only seen maybe a couple. Maggie, before this movie, what was the Stanley Kubrick movie you watched?
The only other one that I had seen, as far as I'm aware, is Doctor Strangelove.
I think
which I had forgotten was a Kubrick film until I was looking at the IMDb trivia.
Doesn't feel too much like a Kubrick film.
But
a lot of Kubrick films are kind of...
genre bending?
Yeah, he doesn't stick with one type of genre. He doesn't stick with one type of directing. But they do all kind of feel like they belong in the same collection. Fear and Desire, I never saw.
Mm-mm.
Killer's Kiss.
Nope.
The Killing.
No.
Paths of Glory.
No.
I'd like to watch, but have not had a chance. Spartacus. I've
seen Spartacus.
I'm always looking up Spartacus, but it's never available to stream anything.
I watched Spartacus in my 7th grade history class.
Ah, all right. Well,
yeah.
There you go. Kubrick film.
I did not know that was a Kubrick film, though.
Lolita, Doctor Strangelove, like we said. Both of us have seen that. It might have been my first Kubrick film.
I guess Spartacus would have been mine.
Gotcha.
Having not known, though.
2001, A Space Odyssey,
Boo.
of course. Oh, stop it.
What?
A Clockwork Orange.
You don't like that movie either.
I have come around to it.
Have you?
A little bit. I don't like watching it. After a while, I just... Like, while they're in space and dealing with their ship's computer... Hello, Dave. You know, I like all that stuff. More than anything, I like the visuals. It's got great visuals, and it's got great special effects for a 60s movie.
I wish I had
compared to the other 60s movies that were out at the same time, especially sci-fi.
I wish I had a soundboard in front of me so that I could play a noise that indicated an eye roll every time I needed to eye roll.
I mean...
Yeah, but I can't reach that.
Oh, well.
So...
Just say eye roll. Yeah, Clockwork Orange, which I still have not seen, but everybody always tells me...
I will never watch it.
That's fine. You don't have to.
No.
I'm trying to.
My mom said I can't, so I won't.
Good thing you listen to your mom.
Well, yeah, you have to listen to your mom. She's your mom.
Barry Lyndon, which I've always wanted to see but haven't. Then we've got, of course, The Shining. I have seen Full Metal Jacket.
Oh, have I seen Full Metal Jacket? I might have seen parts of it. I know that was the one with Vincent D'Onofrio. Yeah, I've seen that part.
And Arlie Remy.
Yeah, I haven't seen the full movie, but I've seen parts of it.
This is my rifle. There are many like it, but this one is mine.
Yeah.
All right. And then Eyes Wide Shut being his last film.
Which I also never plan on watching, in all honesty.
I saw it.
And?
Yeah, it was fine.
Yeah.
It was an interesting movie. I saw it a long time ago. Probably not long after it came out, just because people were talking about it. And it had Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise in it.
Yeah.
Who, at the time, I loved both of them.
Yeah.
You know, them being Hollywood sweethearts, the married couple that it was like the power couple.
Yeah.
Kind of thing of Hollywood. And now they're in like this really risque
sex club
movie.
You were just hoping to see boobs.
Oh, and I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But not Nicole Kidman's boobs. Do you see Nicole Kidman's boobs?
I want to say yes, but it may have just been her butt.
Huh.
Or it might have been a double. Like I said, many years ago,
Yeah.
I've seen this. I saw that film and can't remember whose boobs, whose butt, and I know Tom Cruise really didn't.
Well, yeah,
show
no,
much.
he's not gonna hang dong on camera.
Because he has no down to hang.
Oh, we're immediately shut down by Scientology. They break through our door right now, kill both of us.
Jeez. The Shining was written by Stephen King, based off of his novel, and then Stanley Kubrick and Diane Johnson both worked on the script together. Music was by Wendy Carlos, who also worked on scoring Tron, and Tron was like her big, other than The Shining.
Are we calling what's in The Shining music? And not just shrill noises screamed at you at a very, very loud volume? Louder than anything else in the movie?
That happened like once or twice.
It happened a lot.
No, and it wasn't shrill.
It was very shrill.
No.
It was incredibly
There's
shrill.
a lot of great music. The wah, 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 wah.
I don't think you and I have the same idea of what great music is.
It's a great soundtrack.
Is it?
Yeah.
No.
It's fantastic.
It's terrible.
It's iconic.
I don't know why.
So, like I said, she also scored the original Tron movie. She worked on Clockwork Orange, the electronic music part of it, because I believe it was mainly a soundtrack movie. A lot of needle drops in Clockwork Orange, and she worked on the electronic music, but under the name Walter Carlos.
Interesting.
Instead of Wendy Carlos. Wendy also had a co-composer named Rachel Elkind, who worked on 2 songs in Clockwork Orange, Biblical Daydreams and Country Lane. For any of those of you who know who those songs are, if you're big Clockwork Orange fans. The cinematography, which I love the cinematography of The Shining. It was John Alcott, who also worked on Clockwork Orange, Barry Lyndon, and, we don't talk about production design much, but along with cinematography, I think the production designer, Roy Walker, did a great job with the designing the entire.
The Overlook Hotel is a beautifully put together set.
It is. Yeah,
it is
great
a
set.
Yeah, it is a phenomenal set. I will agree. And that fucking red bathroom might have been my favorite set in the movie. It was just so striking and so beautiful.
I think it was yesterday you showed me a bunch of pictures of somebody who recreated all those all the really memorable, iconic sets.
Out of Lego.
Out of all of the Lego.
Yeah.
And they were so spot on.
It was pretty beautiful.
To every piece of, every chair, every railing.
Yeah, everything was very...
the
the
lighting,
green bathroom done in Lego was beautiful.
Yeah, the curtains of the bathtub was like...
kind of hiding a body. Yeah.
It was really, really...
It was quite something.
But Roy Walker, the production designer, also worked on some other movies that people might be familiar with. First of all, just because it made me laugh, he was the production designer for Hitler: The Last Days, starring Alec Guinness as Hitler, which just made me laugh because I haven't watched a lot of Alec Guinness movies. I think other than Star Wars, there's one other movie I've seen and I don't remember the name of it, so that's not very helpful. But he also worked on The Killing Fields, Little Shop of Horror, Good Morning Vietnam, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, Eyes Wide Shut.
I do love Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. That is a
And
great
The Talented
film.
Mr. Ripley.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so if you like the production design of any of those, it's the same guy who did The Shining.
All right.
The Shining is certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes with an 83% from critics and a 93% from audiences.
Eye roll.
It was made for $19 million and it made $45 million domestic, and it only brought in $1 million internationally. So it tells you that I don't know how much America was exporting its film back in the 80s.
Yeah. I think they were. Star Wars was a huge thing.
I also don't know how big. Yeah, of course. But I don't know how big horror.
Yeah.
Was back in the 80s to export to Europe and Asia, and Australian places that are usually pretty big markets for American films. But to only bring in $1 million, it must not have gotten a big screening.
Hasn't gone far. Yeah. Well, I mean, but eventually it has
it has.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, this movie wasn't necessarily well received at the beginning.
It was not well. See, I've been curious if the 93% from audiences was
then or now
more current.
Yeah,
like
it's probably
now,
more current.
Once we had talked about Rotten Tomatoes came into existence in the late 90s.
Yeah.
So 1980, obviously, people go back and be like, The Shining, it's the best thing ever.
Yeah, or The Shining, it was terrible.
Which not a lot of people said. If Rotten Tomatoes had a time machine, it could have their website.
Oh, if only Rotten Tomatoes had a time machine.
We all know Stephen King didn't like the movie.
Yes.
It deviated from his book.
He didn't like the casting.
He didn't like Wendy.
Yeah, he didn't like Jack. He didn't like a lot of it.
There's a lot of stuff that Stephen King
didn't
like and still to this day does not like about
it. But this movie, it borrowed the name and the characters and a lot of the plot points of The Shining. It's not a faithful adaptation.
No.
Which not every Stephen King adaptation has been a good one. I know that fans of the Dark Tower series were particularly pissed about the movie that came out with Idris Elba.
That movie was terrible.
I didn't watch it because I wasn't going to. But I also haven't read any of the Dark Tower books because it's somehow like 115 books, a handful of comic books, some like ancient philosophy books that he has retconned, and also his own personal life. It is an intense series of nonsense. And I don't dislike Stephen King. I don't like horror, which has been well established on this podcast. So I haven't read a lot of his stuff. Like, obviously, The Shawshank and The Green Mile I enjoy. But, like, I haven't seen it.
Stand By Me.
Yeah, Stand By Me is a good one. I like his more real, sort of rooted movies.
Sure. Same.
As opposed to any of his horror stuff. But that's just because, like, it's not my cup of tea. Although, weirdly, I do love Dreamcatcher.
Dreamcatcher is a
terrible film. But I have a weird soft spot in my heart for it.
And it's not a great book either. I own Dreamcatcher. It's a very long novel that just keeps going on and on and on and on. Nothing ever happens, and then it's over. Producer
Robin keeps trying to lay on my laptop just by, like, literally stepping on it. So if you hear me yelling at him at any point, Catsman. Scatman.
Scatman Crothers.
Scatman, what a great fucking name.
I like him in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Let's get into the cast.
So, yeah, Scatman Crothers as Halloran, the, what do they call him? Kind of like he's the kitchen
head chef, basically.
Is he head chef, or is he just like the manager of the wait staff?
No, he's like I think he introduced himself as like the head chef or like the head of the kitchen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
Before I didn't watch The Shining until after sometime between 1996 and the year 2000. So I'd obviously seen Jack Nicholson as the Joker in Batman. Mm-hmm. And then there's a few other things that I might have caught.
I mean, he was kind of omnipresent in our earlier lives. Like,
he's always around.
Yeah, he was just always around. Is he still alive?
He is still alive.
Oh, crazy.
But he's not around anymore.
Yeah.
Like, he's not in public eye anymore. You used to see him, he always sat front seat at the Oscars. He always sits front seat at basketball games. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he does that as much anymore.
No, I think he's enjoying his quiet life. Oh my God, Robin.
I had seen movies like A Few Good Men and Mars Attacks.
Yeah.
And Anger Management, which came out in the early 2000s. It took a while for me to watch The Shining, and I still haven't watched a lot of his older stuff.
Yeah.
I've never seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
I have. It's weird.
Of course it is.
I saw it as a young kid, too.
Chinatown is another movie I've been constantly told to see, but I still haven't.
My thing about Jack Nicholson is I feel like he was always destined to be an asshole, right? Like, with that face and with that kind of inner rage, he portrays being an asshole very well. But there's something about him when he's young and an asshole. Like, I feel like he hasn't grown into the full power of his assholery yet, which is what we got in his characters in later years. Because, like, Jack Nicholson has never not played an asshole. As far as I can tell, as far as of all the movies that I've seen of his, doing a quick Rolodex shuffle in my own brain, he has never played, like... The cuddly guy.
Father figure.
No, he's always a little mad. And, that's fine. I'm just saying I've never seen range out of him.
And that's why I want to watch some of his older stuff.
Yeah.
I've seen him. There's a movie that I saw with him in it. I think it's an old black and white movie, actually. And he's not as asshole. I don't remember what it was called, but I just remember, and he's so young in it.
Yeah.
And it barely looks like him, and it doesn't even sound like him. So I'd imagine that there are some movies in his past, his early work that we've never seen, where he's a little. But I think once he became like really popular, and Mr. Hollywood, he probably just kind of people kept casting him in the same roles, typecasting in a way. I mean, his characters are always so different, but it always does. It's always
just supreme madness, and
it always does look like Jack Nicholson playing a Jack Nicholson character.
I can't say I remember the last time I think that he melted into a character to the point that you're not like, oh, that's not Jack Nicholson.
I would argue that the Joker is not as Jack Nicholson as...
Oh, the Joker is full Jack Nicholson. Are you kidding me? Like, just letting him kind of be mad? Like, I mean, are you talking about the face paint or just...
He's mad. No,
the smile, the eyebrows, all of it. I don't know. Like, that is supreme Jack Nicholson to me.
To me, it's less and more Joker. Like, I think he did a good Joker, not...
Robin, Jesus Christ. I mean, yeah, his Joker is his Joker's a fine Joker. There have been better Jokers since. And I know that that's sacrilege to some Batman fans. But the truth is that his Joker is nothing special considering where that character has gone. I would still rather watch Jack Nicholson's Joker to Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, and Jared Leto's is the worst. But still, like, what Mark Hamill did, what fucking Heath Ledger did, there have been better Jokers.
I think my favorite Jack Nicholson role was probably the one he did in The Departed,
which I've never seen.
I think he did a good job, but he's still very Jack Nicholson in that. I just like the character and how he plays him. Then we've got Shelley Duvall.
Poor Shelley Duvall.
As Wendy. Yes, poor Shelley Duvall.
God, that poor woman. Absolute nonsense she put up with for years because of this movie. The Razzies nominating her for worst performance. What Kubrick himself put her through. Like, the physical and mental, like, anguish that he put her through to get that particular acting out of her. So unnecessary, so insane, would not stand up today. But it's kind of an incredible performance. So
I think she did a great job under the duress that she had to go through. Considering what she had to go through.
There's no desperation. Oh, come on. What do you mean roll video? Seconds. We're fucking killing ourselves out here, and you've got to be ready.
I am too. I'm standing
so we
right
play
by
mood
the
music?
door. No, I can't.
Yeah, but when you came in like this, you said just.
We're sitting there because they say, "Wait a minute," and then you say on the radio,
"But when you
go.
do it, you've got to look desperate, Shelley. You're just wasting everybody's time now."
I can't even get the door open.
It was extremely difficult. He demanded realism, so I had to really cry. For 9 months out of the year and 1 month that I was in London to do the film.
I resented Stanley at times because he pushed me, and it hurt. And it's just the necessary turmoil to get out of it what you want out of it. I mean, we had the same end in mind. It was just that sometimes we differed in our means, and by the end, the means met.
I'm very pleased to have done it because I've learned more on that picture and strengthened myself and broadened the scale that my emotions can reach more than any other picture I've ever done.
I find I really respect him and really like him, both as a person and as a director. I mean, I'm amazed.
For a person so charming and so likable, indeed lovable, he can do some pretty cruel things when you're filming. Because it seemed to me at times that the end justified the means. It was a very difficult role. It was a long shoot, and I had to cry and hyperventilate and carry a little boy and run, for most of the time we shot. And that was about a year, a little over a year. And anywhere between 30 and 50 videotaped rehearsals before we even rolled film. I wouldn't trade the experience for anything. Why? Because of Stanley. And it was a fascinating learning experience. It was such intense work that I think it makes you smarter. But I wouldn't want to go through it again.
To be just this mom who's trying to be supportive to her husband and help her
son.
Keep her and her son are keeping each other entertained essentially while they are in this secluded hotel for 5 months. I never watched Annie Hall, so I never saw her in that. But the only other movie that I think I ever saw from her was Popeye.
Yeah, but do you remember Shelley Duvall's fairy tale stories? Or, what was the name of that?
I think I've seen...
Yeah, she had this really sweet...
or
in
something,
the
I never think I
late
saw
80s,
episodes.
she had this really sweet series where she and all of her famous friends would retell fairy tales, fantasies. And I'm searching for the name of it now. She passed recently, didn't she?
She did.
Yeah.
This year.
She was in Wishbone. I fucking loved Wishbone. That was one of those stories or shows I would come home and watch like a son of a bitch.
She was in Time Bandits, but I don't remember her in it.
The Shelley Duvall fairy tale series.
Was it just called Fairy Tale Theater?
Yes, it was. That was something that was so dear to my heart growing up. When I was in school and they rolled in the TV and put on a VHS of those, I would be so happy. And they're all kind of creepy in the way that 80s kids entertainment always had to be a little creepy and spooky, which explains a lot about the elder millennials that I know. I always just really remember. I remember the Princess and the Pea one, I think, was my favorite. Couldn't even tell you who was in it. I just remember loving it.
You brought up the Razzies, and I was going to go to awards after.
Oh, Shelley Duvall was in Home Fries.
I don't think I ever saw Home
Yes,
Fries.
You did. I've made you watch it.
Oh, yeah, with
Catherine O'Hara and Luke Wilson and Drew Barrymore. She plays Drew Barrymore's mom in it.
Okay.
Yeah. So you've seen a few of her performances. That movie is priceless. It's such a great dark comedy.
I was going to do awards later, but I'll at least do the Razzies for now. In 1981, the Razzies nominated Shelley Duvall for Worst Actress. And in 2022, it took all the way to 2022, even though it was said years before the 2020s that Kubrick had given her a really hard time on set. It wasn't until 2022 that the Razzies officially rescinded their nominee. It's not like she didn't win the Razzie, but she was still nominated, and they put out a statement saying, "We have since discovered that Duvall's performance was impacted by Stanley Kubrick's treatment of her throughout the production." So they took that away. And then the other nominated Razzie for this movie was for Stanley Kubrick for Worst Director.
Well deserved.
Damn. I don't believe so. The Shining was not nominated for any major awards.
I'm shocked by this.
Oscars. Well, the Oscars do not nominate horror films. You might get a nice little... it's like horror and superheroes. Like you might get
you get the occasional.
You get a technical thing here, or maybe one time a really good performance like Heath Ledger, but horror films rarely get any kind of recognition. But in 2012, the Saturn Awards gave The Shining Best DVD Collection. In 1981, Catman Crothers won the Saturn Award for Best Supporting Actor. In 2018, the National Film Registry made it part of its National Film Preservation list. And in 2023, the OFTA Film Hall of Fame gave Best Character to Jack Nicholson. In 2014, the OFTA Film Hall of Fame gave The Shining Best Motion Picture. And In 2010, The Guardian gave The Shining the greatest films of all time, specifically horror, for Stanley Kubrick. And that is all of its awards.
And if this movie came out today, it would still not be an award-winning film.
In 1981, during the Oscars, the winner for Best Director was Robert Redford for Ordinary People. The other nominees were David Lynch for The Elephant Man and Raging Bull for Martin Scorsese. And then Best Films, it went to Ordinary People, which I don't think I ever knew that Robert Redford, that early in his career, got a director and Best Film Oscars.
Yeah.
Because I've never seen Ordinary People, but I just didn't know that about him. So I thought that was pretty neat. The other Best Film nominees were The Coal Miner's Daughter, Elephant Man, and Raging Bull. So
a little peek into the 1981 Oscars.
Yeah, I like seeing 81. That's the year I was born. What Oscar? Who was winning Oscars back then?
Yeah.
It's kind of neat to look back and see a bunch of these famous directors and films. The rest of the cast for The Shining, I mean, it really, because it is a 3-person movie for the majority of the time, other than some ghosts, it's really Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall.
Danny Lloyd plays the little boy Danny.
Right. He
does a great fucking job.
For being
7,
8, 10.
Yeah, 7. It specifically said that he's 5 in the novel and he's 7 in the movies.
Great job for a 7-year-old.
Yeah, right? Like,
I've seen some performance from kids older. He knocked it out of the park.
While I was begrudgingly watching this movie yesterday, I was worried about how little Danny Lloyd was treated on set because, Stanley Kubrick is notoriously an asshole.
Sure.
But apparently he was well protected, that Stanley Kubrick made sure that he was not aware of all of the really spooky stuff in the film. Danny himself thought that he was filming a drama and didn't even see the full uncut movie until he was 17.
I bet. I mean, if you think about the film, if you think about the moments that he's involved in,
yes,
where the camera's on him,
yes,
not a lot's happening.
No,
he's reacting to things that probably aren't there,
which he's really good at.
Yes, he is.
For 7.
For a 7-year-old reacting to things that he can't see. Like, be scared. Look Look horrified.
Look worried. Yeah.
Look worried. Look confused.
Red Ram.
Red Ram.
Yeah, no, and he has since gone on to just live a normal life. Apparently he is a teacher at a community college somewhere in the middle of the country, and he has been known to fail or remove students who bring up The Shining when they enter his class. Oh,
But still, fail just for bringing up a movie? It's a famous film, and if your teacher ends up being...
Yeah, and you're going to get asked constant questions about it to the point of annoyance.
Chill
and
out, dude.
Chill out. I don't know. Like,
of course, it wasn't my life.
Movie.
I'm sure from 7 to 47, 57, he's probably in his... he's probably in his late 40s by now.
Early 50s.
He's 7 years older than me. Probably 8 years older than me. So he's early 50s probably.
Apparently he got to hang out with the Muppets a lot outside of this movie, which I'm supremely jealous of. But I'm always jealous of anyone that gets to meet a Muppet.
Hey, if you get to meet the Muppets, if you get to
what I wouldn't give to get a hug by Kermit the Frog.
Right.
I think it would heal a part of my soul.
There's a bunch of other people. I mean, we talked about Scatman Crothers. Some other people who are in this. You got Barry Nelson, Philip Stone, Joe Turkel, Ann Jackson, Tony Burton, Barry Dennen, David Bax. A lot of these are...
Names no one recognizes.
Names no one really... I mean, I'm sure there's some people back in the 80s were like, oh, I know that character actor. Or... there are some people whose IMDb photo is still for The Shining.
Like Philip Stone.
Who played Grady, Joe Turkel, who played Lloyd the bartender. You got the 2 forest rangers. The twins don't have any photo on their IMDb. So a lot of these people just, I'm here to do a movie, and then they did it. And either they had the worst time on set, which from every account,
I mean, considering how long this film took to be made, because Stanley Kubrick was such a fucking white psycho a perfectionist. Like,
well, and he also used a really small crew. He used a really small crew. He liked working on small crews, and it gave him an excuse to work long hours.
Take after take after take after take after take. I mean, I read one thing on IMDb about how one of the scenes that was filmed in multiple takes was Shelley Duvall running up some stairs, and she ran up those stairs so many times for this particular take, again and again and again, that it was the equivalent of her running from the bottom to the top of the Empire State Building. Like,
that's a good workout.
Fucking no wonder she was so exhausted all the time and so waif-like and tortured. God, that poor woman.
But I could see a lot of these actors were Kubrick probably ruined acting or the love of being on set for a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, so like going back to his treatment of Shelley Duvall, it pisses me off. It pisses me off how many women, and I mean, even still to this day to an extent, even all the way up to the shit Harvey Weinstein pulled on a bunch of famous Hollywood actresses who refused to sleep with him, and he completely torpedoed their careers. But it pisses me off that, you know, like Kubrick and fucking Hitchcock and all these other famous male directors were so fucking mean to the women, the stars of their movie, and they just tortured these poor women. I mean, look what Hitchcock did to Terry Helpin. I forget her name offhand, but the woman that was in The Birds, like, he fucked with her for years. Like, he fucked with Princess Grace of Monaco. Like, he was just a piece of shit, and they just got away with it for so long. And only now are we not only, like, recognizing these stories about all the shit that women had to go through to make these films, you know, and believing their stories, but also just, like, are finally not treating women that way. I mean, look at what happened to the poor actress on that 2 Weeks in Paris movie with Marlon Brando and the director that essentially, like, anyways, I'm not going to say what he did, but it was with a stick of butter and it was unconsensual. Anyways, it's just fucked, like, how women were treated. So that's kind of one of the main reasons why I've never wanted to watch this movie, is because I had heard the stories about how Shelley Duvall was treated, and I was like, well, that's dumb. Fuck that. I'm not going to watch that film. And also, I don't like horror. All these genius, brilliant directors that we revere and look up to are all fucking habitual predators and pricks. And I don't understand why we still like them, knowing what they were like and how they treated their actors. And it wasn't just the women.
I think we like their movies more than them as people.
I think it's kind of... I know it's hard sometimes to separate the art and the artist, especially when the artist is problematic, but the art is some of your favorite. But still, like, at a certain point, you have to sit back and go, why am I even dealing with any of this guy's stuff when he was such a piece of shit? You know, I've seen maybe 3 Woody Allen films, but I'm never going to watch his stuff because he's a psychotically perverted man. And I'm never going to watch his shit. I'm never going to give him my money. I would have never watched The Shining happily if it wasn't for this fucking podcast. And then I had to watch it yesterday. And Caveman can attest that I watched it basically with my arms folded and a scowl on my face the whole time. Except for when I was covering my ears because the music was so shrill and loud that it was like somebody was taking a knitting needle and pounding it into my eardrums. I fucking hated this movie. Shocker, and spoiler alert, guys, hated it. I hated this film. That's it. That's the podcast. You want to get into reviews, or... I'm near 40. I watched it for the first time yesterday. But I feel like I've seen this film already because it has been parodied time and time and time and 1,000 times again. To the point where all the main beats I was fully aware of. All the main,
lines, like
all the famous lines, all the famous shots, outfits,
probably the carpet.
Locations, the carpet, this movie has been referenced and parodied so much that I immediately went into it kind of worried that I would not enjoy the film for the basis of the fact that it was a parody of itself, right? We've talked about this before, and so many people hyped this movie up. My boss, my therapist, friends, people on Instagram that reached out when I was like, oh, we're watching The Shining. And people are like, oh, this is the greatest movie ever. Blah, blah, blah. This movie was so hyped up to me. Right? That it was one of those things where I was sitting there yesterday watching it, arms folded, going, what movie were they watching that I'm not watching now? Like, where's the dissonance there? And like, yeah, this film's not for me. In any particular way, I am not a fan of any of it. I do not like horror. I don't like movies by assholes. I'm not a big fan of movies from the early 80s because they were all just kind of like, I don't know, they're boring and I don't have time. Like, it's not my cup of tea across the board. So I went into it with a bit of like a attitude, right? And you know, so I brought in my own biases. I still didn't like it. But the parodies of it, right? I mean, it's been in Twister. It's been on Family Guy. Like, the carpet's the same carpet from Sid's house and Toy Story. There are 1,000 references of this story that are just out there in pop culture. The most of all is that, you know, second to the last scene where you see Jack Nicholson frozen in the snow. Yeah. Whenever I see that image, I think of a South Park episode that ends with Randy, who is one of the greatest characters ever created on this planet. But Randy Marsh is frozen out in the snow after his own particular psychotic break. It might have been when he owned his own movie theater. But I don't remember. It might have been the movie theater or the video store. Oh, God. He's had so many jobs. He's had so many jobs, I know.
After so many years having one job.
Yeah. Then he's gone off and done. Randy Marsh is one of my favorites.
Good evening, fine sir. I would like to rent a movie. Of course, Mr. Marsh. What'll it be? I'll take a DVD of RoboCop 2 and the director's cut of Blade Runner. Coming right up. Your son seems to think video stores are as ancient as Madonna's boobs. He's a very progressive little boy. Gets it from his mother.
His wife, Sharon, approaches him while he's frozen, like, you know, Jack Torrance. And she's like, I'm going to McDonald's. Do you want anything? And he replies, chicken McNugget meal, sweet and sour sauce, and an orange high C. And that was my very common McDonald's order when I ate at McDonald's, was always chicken McNuggets, sweet and sour, and an orange high C. Because that fucking orange high C is my favorite soda on this planet. It's so goddamn good. And so that made me really laugh because I was like, oh shit, Randy Marsh and I like the same McDonald's meal. So that's what I think of as from The Shining, is it all goes back to Randy Marsh.
Ready Player One, they go to the Overlook Hotel.
Fucking of course they do.
But they make it fun. It's a fun moment. Like, there's a character, he's like this big brute of a character, you know, acts tough. Yeah. And freaks the fuck out when he's in the bathroom with the old lady.
Well, yeah. I mean, who wouldn't freak out in that bathroom scene with that old lady? Like, all her skin falling off her is gross. And that's the other thing. I don't know if you want to get into this right now, but...
I mean, we're here.
I was never at any point scared of what was happening in this movie. And it could be because I knew the plot through osmosis, right? I'd seen the little twin girls, or the sisters, or not twins, or the eyebrows, whatever you want to call them. I've seen them in 100,000 things. I've seen the guy having sex with the bear dog monster person.
It's Winnie the Pooh giving a guy a blowjob.
Was that supposed to be Winnie the Pooh?
I don't know if it was supposed to be, but it looked like Winnie the Pooh.
These days Disney would not stand for that, but you could be like, it's the copyright free. It's the
public domain.
Public domain Winnie the Pooh. If you removed the music from this movie and changed it with, even if you just erased music altogether or did a different soundtrack or something, the music is 90% of the tenseness of this film, because it builds and it builds and it builds and it makes you anxious, and then it, you know, something crazy happens and it's a big when it does. And that's what was scary about the film. The blood coming out of the elevator wasn't scary. In fact, I've personally used that GIF to describe my own period countless times, as have most women that I know. Like, seeing the twins wasn't terrifying. Like, but it was all the music, right? He turns the corner and there are the twins and it's wah! But it's not.
No, it's cymbals going. Whoosh.
What the fuck ever. Whatever it is like music that is building up to tension and then the tension is released. But it's not scary.
The movie doesn't use the music to jump scare you.
The music is the jump scare.
Well, I know, but it's not like a lot of modern horror films use the music like a really all of a sudden loud like strings going. Beep!
Yeah, no, you are right there.
They don't do that because the music's what scares you in those films.
Yeah,
not what's happening.
But this music is like so loud and so blaring up into a certain scene, and it's just like blah. And then you're like, she's in a bathtub. They're twins.
I noticed that the music actually gets quieter right before something's going to happen. Like it's building, and then it goes down, and then that's when they introduce a ghost or something is happening on screen.
This film, it wasn't.
But
how is this considered a scary movie? That's the other thing.
For 1980, I think it was very scary.
That's true. I mean, so what they've done with horror films since. I guess I was talking with my boss about horror movies the other day because she loves them like so many people in my life do. And I'm surrounded by horror fans. And for the fact that my birthday is right before Halloween, you would think that I would be a horror fan, but I'm not. I just don't. It's not my jam. And I kind of barely even like Halloween. Like, I know that is sacrilegious to say these days because there's so many people where Halloween's my identity. Which is fine if that's your thing, if that's what brings you joy, great. But I was born so close to Halloween, you'd think that I would be super into it. And, I would take Thanksgiving over Halloween any day when it comes to holidays.
Same.
Yeah.
The only reason I'm still into Halloween now is because
the kids
of our kids.
Yeah.
Once they're out of the house.
Yeah, or if they don't want to trick or treat anymore.
I might hand candy out. But I'm not getting dressed. I don't celebrate. I'm not buying pumpkins.
I would give candy out because that's fun. I mean, free candy is one of life's greatest pleasures. Birthday cake and free candy.
I've never given
the day after each other, two of life's greatest things.
I have never in my life given candy out.
Oh, I used to do it as a teenager. When I was done with trick or treating, I would be the one who would take the bowl to the door. But in my neighborhood growing up, it was such a small neighborhood that we got maybe an hour's worth of trick or treaters, and then they would dip out and go. A couple miles down the road to a big housing project where it was a lot bigger thing and there were sidewalks and it was safe, right? So, I don't know. I forgot where I was going with all of this, but the fact that I don't think that this is a scary movie. It's a thriller, sure.
Psychological thriller is underneath the subgenre. It's a subgenre.
Sure, if you want to call it that, fine. I don't even really think that it properly showed Jack's descent into madness. Because from the time that they get there at the end of October, my birthday, to when, all that, the night that all the shit happens, that happens in, early December. It is barely a month. There's no buildup, right? It just cuts to a month later, and Jack's acting a little squirrely.
As soon as he starts throwing the ball up against the wall, he's already turned.
But you don't...
Which is pretty much a month in.
Yeah, and that's...
But you don't see
it takes an hour and 90 minutes to fucking get to the hotel. God, this movie is slow.
Because the first time he the first time he lashes out is when she brings him food while he's typing.
Oh, no, she just interrupts him to just talk to him about some stuff, like the storm that's coming
and he gets unreasonably upset at her.
So there's no buildup of madness, right?
He is just mad from the beginning.
And one of the...
I would be too.
Well, then it kind of goes back to the whole all writers have to be mad in order to create, which I do understand, but I don't understand. And obviously the terror of sitting down and wanting to write something and the terror of staring at a blank white screen with that little bleaking fucking cursor just taunting you going we know those words are in there, but they're not coming out. I understand that madness and that annoyance on the one hand, but on the other hand, can we stop portraying writers as absolute psychos? But that being said, some of the criticism about Jack Nicholson being hired to play Jack Torrance, especially from Stephen King's point of view, is that it was basically Jack Torrance is supposed to be a character who's a normal, everyday guy who has his own demons that he's struggling with, like we all do, but is trying to do his best by his family, and then is taken in by the ghosts and the spirit of the Overlook Hotel and is driven mad. the movie is more portrayed that Jack is already insane and barely holding it together. And then, like, the second he gets into the Overlook, he cracks. Like, I feel like the buildup to all of this happening was so short, and you didn't get to see a lot of, like, the reasons that he was going mad. You know? And once he starts talking to the ghosts and all those other characters, he's already in it. You know, there was never anything that, like, pulled him back or tried to give him, you know, some redemption. Apparently, like there is in the book, which I obviously haven't read either. I'm just going off what I've been reading on IMDb, Wikipedia. I don't know how much our listeners enjoy listening to an episode where I shit on a beloved movie that everybody else loves, and Caveman tries desperately to review it properly and be like, well, I liked it. And I'm like, fuck you, it was terrible. I don't mean for the rage to come across so deep, but I don't get it, guys. And I try not to be a person that shits on other people's joys. If you like The Shining, great. You know, art is subjective. And I know hundreds of people in my life who absolutely love this movie. And I am just not gonna be one of them. But also, this is my podcast about my opinions on films. And, like, this one could have been done better. I will say, for what it is worth,
yes,
that it was beautifully shot. I mean, the cinematography is gorgeous. The set design is killer. No pun intended. Obsessed with the costumes, especially all the ones that Shelley Duvall wears. At one point, she's wearing this like bright yellow jacket with all these Native American motifs on it. And what I wouldn't give for a copy of that jacket, and I'm sure it exists out on the internet, but it's so beautiful. It's too long of a film, but the set design is incredible. The costume design was incredible. It was a beautifully shot film. I was so bored and I was so annoyed, and Caveman, you talk about what you like about this movie so I can just shut up and people can start paying attention again.
Well, I think they're paying attention, but you know, the Stanley Hotel is a beautiful looking hotel. Even today, like I'm looking at a modern day photograph of it.
I have never understood why the Stanley has not leaned into its inspiration for the Overlook Hotel.
You would think with the amount of people who do consider, I mean, we all think what we want to think about movies because it's all subjective, and you and I still bash on Whiplash, even though I just got done listening to a podcast from two critics who were just loving we're recently celebrating Whiplash's 10th anniversary. Yeah. So they were retrospective look at the movie, and they're bringing up these points of things that they liked. And I was like, why did you like that?
Yeah.
I don't get it. So that's a movie that we both were just...
God, I hate that movie so much. If I had to watch either one of these two movies again, I'd rather watch The Shining over Whiplash. That's how much. And The Shining is an hour and a half to 6.5 hours longer than Whiplash. But I still just... God, I fucking hate Whiplash so much. It's funny, a friend of the show, Megan, is often texting me about ideas on Whiplash and how her husband has very valid points on the film because he particularly loved it. And, you know, like, that movie comes up so much more often than I feel like it did before I watched it and decided to hate it for all of eternity. God, I fucking hate Whiplash so much.
Well, that part we can agree on.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that when Stephen King chose to make or to write The Shining and where to place it, you know, most of his books take place on the East Coast, specifically in Maine.
Mm-hmm. New England's a big part of his repertoire.
And I guess he wanted to get away from Maine. Like, all right, I've got plenty of books in the New England area. Mm-hmm. Let's do something different. So he opened up an atlas on his kitchen table and just randomly pointed to a place in America. And it ended up being Boulder, Colorado. Stanley Hotel is in Colorado, not in Boulder, but I think it's outside Boulder, but it's in an area called Estes Park in Colorado. He stayed there for a night, and him and his wife were the only two guests in that hotel.
He also stayed in a notoriously haunted room in the Stanley Hotel, because the Stanley Hotel itself has oodles, buckets, fucking gallons worth of ghost stories wrapped around it.
And I think you and I have watched a Ghost Hunters type
Ghost Hunters,
show.
no, actually, the Ghost Hunters themselves went to the Stanley Hotel a couple of times.
Yeah,
They even had a
at least 2 or
live
3
Halloween episode
That's
there
right.
where could have been fake, but they were like in the basement and you heard this little disembodied voice off camera go, "Hello?" And it was fucking creepy,
But that's kind of what gave him the idea.
He was also himself.
Right, it was just being when you're the only person, when you're the only people in a massive hotel.
Yeah, it's got to be pretty creepy.
It's got to be pretty creepy.
Yeah, especially in
already.
a notoriously haunted hotel.
Right.
He also kind of took on his own struggles with alcoholism, being, the kind of father that he was at the time and stuff. I feel like he put a lot of himself into Jack Torrance, which might be why he's so upset with the film's portrayal of him. Colorado's a spooky place. A lot of weird shit happens out there. I mean, if you ever want to go on a really fun and awkward and paranoid deep dive, just learn about the Denver airport and all the creepy shit that's going on there. That giant Horseman of the Apocalypse statue, the weird basements. Yeah, Colorado's a strange fucking place. And also, why does everything have to be buried on top of an Indian burial ground or built on an Indian burial ground? Why was there this fascination from the 60s to the 90s when it came to Native American burial grounds always being so fucking haunted that all the spirits would kill you if you set foot on it?
I wonder if it has anything to do with when you and I die.
Yeah.
We have grave sites.
Mm-hmm.
And our grave sites are marked and our grave sites are reserved for
sectioned off,
certain spot.
There's your cemetery.
We don't build hotels on top of cemeteries. In early colonialism of America, I'm sure we built plenty of structures on top of.
Yeah, but why where did it come from? Basically, the idea that I might ask Ralph Garman that the idea that Native American burial grounds are obviously they're sacred land to a sacred people, the indigenous people of our nation. Yeah. But why is it that if a white man builds a house on it or a hotel,
I think
then shit goes squirrely?
I think if you built it on top of a quote unquote white cemetery, the same thing would happen.
Because it's just that it's a cemetery.
It's a cemetery.
So why did it always have to be native?
Because we have no respect for the Native Americans. And we will build our
grand hotels on
top of whatever we want.
Well, yeah, I mean, we did, steal this country from them and then fuck them over relentlessly.
And continue to this day.
Continuously, yes. And you're right, we have no respect for their customs or their burial practices. But I just wonder where that particular pop culture phenomenon came from. Because as soon as the GM of the hotel was like, "Oh, they say it was buried on an Indian burial ground," I was like, why does it have to be that? And that is also, I feel like, a very majorly Stephen King thing too. He loves his burial grounds getting fucked with. I don't know. It's another cliche, right? At the time, if I'd have seen this movie as a teenager in 1980, maybe I would have been fucking blown away by it, right? But I was -4, and I don't think my parents had even met yet.
I find it interesting that even when his wife, Stephen King's wife, went to bed that night at the hotel, he decided to just walk around this empty hotel and ended up in a bar at the hotel and was served the drinks by a bartender named Grady. He was also, like you said, him being an alcoholic was the inspiration for writing, the main antagonist being an alcoholic. The protagonist in The Shining is, according to Stephen King, a man who has broken his son's arm, who has a history of child beating, who was beaten himself when Stephen King, who was a young father at the time of 2 children, was horrified of his occasional feelings of these thoughts of doing something terrible to his kids. I don't think he ever said that he did anything, but when he was drinking heavily and got into these mindsets of his children, there were times where he wasn't thinking good things about them.
Yeah, I mean, alcoholism is a legit disease, and having small kids running around just doing everything but behaving definitely makes you go, I don't kill these little shits. I can't. Like, there's no parent that has not had that thought of just like, oh, fucking kill them. But you don't act on it. It's just a impulsive thought that you have when you're at your absolute wit's end. And I'm sure that the alcoholism doesn't make it any better or easier. You grow up with an alcoholic in your life, and you get used to a lot of things that you look back on later on and go, oh, that wasn't cool at all, ever. I find it kind of funny that the Stanley Hotel recreated the Overlook Hotel bathroom, the green one with the curtain and everything. So, like, that bathroom now does exist. That is horrifying bathroom.
I would not stay in that room.
I don't know. Like, the bathroom is...
I'd like to see the bathroom and stand in it.
Beautiful and ugly at the same time.
I don't think I would want to go to sleep that night with that bathroom down.
It's just a bathroom.
No.
It's just a bathroom.
That's what you say now.
It's an ugly bathroom.
All night I'm just going to be looking at that door or...
Well, yeah, but also we would never be able to stay at the Stanley Hotel in room 217 because it costs like $400 a night to stay there. And that's goddamn ridiculous.
237.
Do not make me come over this table at you, sir.
So some things that I really like.
Yeah.
I love the way the movie starts off with the helicopter shot of the VW bug going down up the mountain pass to the Overlook Hotel. Some really... actually neat shots. I think I didn't notice it this time around. I don't know if there's a wider screen version of this movie that shows... I remember there's a time where you could actually see the shadow of the helicopter in the opening in one moment. It was like way off to the side. So I wonder if the version that's streaming on Max just didn't have as wide of a screen that they have shown. And there's even this really close dive that the helicopter does right behind the Beetle as the Beetle goes around the corner, and the helicopter just keeps going straight off of the road. I think it's a really well done sequence. The like you said at the beginning, the title sequence, the title cards.
The title cards.
The color for them was a little off.
A little off. It was like cerulean blue. It's kind of one of the happiest, most tranquil colors you can come up with. A light sky blue. And it's like, Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
They're trying to really get you into like this really calm mood.
I get it,
relaxation.
Because they couldn't have put black lettering on that screen because you wouldn't have seen it. And they couldn't put white lettering on that screen because they wouldn't have seen it. So they had to pick a color. But the color they chose was a choice.
It's like, yeah, really baby blue.
Yeah, just like a baby powder blue. And it's like, that's interesting. Apparently, the helicopter shots were originally filmed in Colorado, but Kubrick was not impressed by the footage that they brought back.
Oh.
He fired that entire crew.
Jeez.
And then hired somebody else to go out to Wyoming to film instead.
So that's Wyoming we see at the beginning?
Yes, or South Dakota, but I think it was Wyoming. One of those higher up states, but...
Interesting.
Yeah, it makes
Colorado.
sense.
Give me South Dakota.
Yeah, so the film is set in Colorado. It was filmed in England. The outside of the set is a hotel in Oregon. The hedge wasn't actually really there. The establishing shots were filmed in fucking Wyoming. Colorado barely plays a role in this movie in terms of actual set pieces or filming there.
I think Wendy told Danny at the beginning, like, something about he hasn't made any friends yet. He's 7, so 2nd grade.
Yeah, he's also not really in school either.
He's not in school. Well, obviously, I mean, he's 5 months.
Yeah, they're going to pull him out for 5 months to...
Which, there wasn't any kind of homeschooling happening. He just got to play and run around with his mom. And he has no...
Our son would have fucking loved that.
Oh, absolutely. He loves hotels. But he doesn't have any friends, and I think there's a line where Wendy's like, maybe he'll make some friends on our trip. Who? It's the three of you for 5 months.
Well,
Who are you making friends with? Also, it's
say
hard
shit to your kids,
It's
right?
also hard to make It's also hard to make new friends when you have an imaginary friend that lives in your mouth and talks through your finger.
Yes.
I'm sure a lot of your second grade pals or second grade classmates aren't really
like, that's weird.
Little like something off about this
Well,
kid.
I guess it's hard. I wouldn't know personally, but I gotta imagine it's hard to be a clairvoyant kid. Apparently his powers are a lot stronger in the books. Yeah, when you know things about the people around you just by looking at them or touching them, it's gonna be a hard time to make a pal, right? Because you're like, oh, you're gonna die in 14 days. What?
So something that I was thinking about watching this movie for the umpteenth time, I was wondering why, if Jack wants to get rid of his wife and son, he just needs to kill them. I think running after your wife and son with an axe or just trying to hurt them in any way is not the way to do it. I think the better way to do it would have been, since they are...
Wait a minute here.
It's snowed in.
Uh-huh.
You can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Sure, go out to the snow cat, pull the spark plugs out. That works, because then now you really can't, because you're not going to walk down that mountain.
No.
You're going to freeze to death.
Yeah.
So, and, breaking the radio was a smart idea on his part so that they can't call in for help. So nobody can come to you. You can't go to anybody. You're stuck there for months. Why go after your family with an axe when all you have to do is destroy the food?
Yeah, but then you don't get to eat anything either.
Yeah, but just like Grady shot himself in the face with a shotgun because it's essentially a murder-suicide thing that the hotel is telling him to do. So all he has to do is make everybody starve to death, and he's completed his mission.
Yeah.
That was just something
So, in other words, if we ever stayed at a hotel for 5 months and you decided to kill me and your family, you would just get rid of all the food?
If that was something I wanted to do?
Well, now we have that out there on the internet for the authorities to have.
Sure.
Why did he do it? I know. We'll listen to their podcast.
Sure. You got me. But like I said, murder-suicide.
Yeah.
It doesn't. My end game is the same as yours.
Yeah, but then you're also starving to death.
Like Jack really looked like he cared.
True. He didn't really care.
He went batshit crazy in that place.
There was so much food.
There was so much.
And there was
a year's supply of food.
Yeah.
And I was like, I bet I could eat a year's supply of food in 5 months.
There was so much food, and also like all of the old school labels for like Tang and Kool-Aid and Oreos and fucking like this was also well before, like, obviously product placement was a thing to an extent, but I don't think there was any product placement in this movie. I think they were just
so?
I really don't.
They purposely turned those canisters label out.
Some of them were hidden.
Like,
I don't know, they were just...
You had Mickey Mouse on Danny's shirt.
That was absolutely not sanctioned. I guarantee it.
You got Oreos, Nilla wafers, Heinz ketchup, Tang, Kool-Aid.
Fuck, I want some Tang right now. I haven't had it in so long.
There were so many different products that were just blatantly labels out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I guess they could have turned it around. I can't imagine Kubrick being like, we must show the Tang container on the shelf. I don't know. I'm probably not doing...
how does Kubrick talk?
I don't know how he fucking talks. Was he English? He was an asshole. He talks the way he wants to talk.
I think you're confusing
him with Werner Herzog. I want to see the baby.
No,
but I'm just saying that, like, the labels were hella cool. Seeing those old school labels, I was like, oh, look at that neat old Tang label. I remember that from my own childhood.
Kubrick was born in New York City.
Kubrick was American? I always thought he was English.
See, that's why I think you're thinking of...
Hitchcock?
Hitchcock.
Oh. For the viewers who couldn't see what Caveman was just doing, he was actively miming stabbing.
Jerking off the air.
Jesus. Which is what people do when they talk about this film. Just jerk it off completely. Wow. Could our little family, and I'm not saying at a haunted hotel, because obviously the ghosts are going to win out at the end of the day, and we luckily don't have any clairvoyant children. But would you stay at a hotel like that for 5 months out in the secluded nowhere? Like, could we handle that? Our marriage, our children?
I would be a little worried about the children because...
I'd be worried about our son because he's so extroverted. He would be such a nuisance by day 3.
If we could bring a tutor with us as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, but here's the thing. We could only do it if we had Wi-Fi, right? They would do online Zoom classes during the day.
You know, that's true.
They'd still have their TikToks.
I either need a
and their
tutor
YouTubes.
physically with us to teach the kids, but if we had Wi-Fi, yeah, they could do classes online or whatever. I think if, we're just doing this obviously as a hypothetical. First of all, those 5 months, I better be getting very well paid.
Oh yeah, no, that's got to be, because you're on call 24/7.
Yeah, it's you're fixing whatever needs to be fixed. You are going around to different sections of the hotel, turning on and off boilers, keeping things warm, making sure that the winter storms do not destroy this
and if
hotel.
They do destroy anything, you got to fix it.
And somebody on Instagram or something, they always post like this island with a single house on the island, and they're like, for $1 million, would you stay here for a year? And $1 million,
no.
You wouldn't do it for $1 million?
No, because I don't think it would cover the expenses. I mean, we don't make $1 million a year.
That's the point.
I guess you're right. It just seemed, I feel like we would need more money than $1 million.
You would need more money for $1 million.
I mean, if somebody came up and knocked on our door right now, a nice little, hello, I will give you $1 million if you move out to this house in the middle of the island in the middle of the Atlantic.
I mean, I'd have
for a year.
Billion questions.
Oh, 1,000, yeah. The first one being, would we have Wi-Fi? What's the internet situation like?
I think I could do it without Wi-Fi.
I mean, we could. Our children would murder us on day 3.
Maybe
murder us, Shining style.
Maybe I just go out by myself.
Here's Alex.
Just like somebody who goes out for a long, whether they're a trucker in the military.
You are not built for that sort of isolation.
You don't think I can just
keep
myself occupied for a year?
Not after almost 20 years of us being together. When you were younger, maybe. Pre-kids, probably.
What do you think I would need?
Me.
Oh, well, yeah, probably.
Like, first and foremost, me, because you'd lose your keys on day 2, and I would have to fly out.
Kids have moved out of the house.
All right, kids are adults.
They're adults with their own families.
Yeah.
You and I are invited to watch over a house on an island for a year without Wi-Fi. But we have each other. We have plenty of food. They're paying us well. There's a library. I will say there's
to read.
Yeah. There's a library.
Is there a library of DVDs and a decent TV?
Sure. We'll say that there is 1,000 movies to choose from, a television, and another 1,000 records. So you've got your music, you got your films, you've got plenty of food, and you got me. And you're getting $1 million at the end of the year.
I could do it, but we would fight a lot. Or maybe we wouldn't. I don't know. Sometimes being isolated with you. But here's the thing, right? You and I have never experienced cabin fever, and we have never experienced, it's not called island fever. When you're stuck on an island and you can't leave. It's essentially the same thing as cabin fever, that you're stuck here for an amount of time. You cannot get off. Eventually, you're going to go a little bit mad.
It's the same thing with, like, the movie The Lighthouse.
Yeah.
Is the same thing where these two...
Jack Nicholson furiously masturbating over a dead seagull? Doesn't that happen in The Lighthouse?
Not Jack Nicholson.
Well, no, I know not Jack Nicholson, but you said it was like The Lighthouse, and I just thought of Jack Nicholson furiously masturbating over a seagull.
Nobody masturbates over a seagull in The Lighthouse.
Well, but isn't there a furious masturbation scene?
Yes, Willem Dafoe does it up in The Lighthouse. And then it drips down onto Robert Pattinson. Spoilers for The Lighthouse. If anybody wanted to.
I'm sorry. Jack Nicholson furiously masturbating. I mean, Willem Dafoe doing that is still just as funny, but now in my head I see Jack Nicholson just making that noise while, Could we do it?
Like there's
yes, I think we could do it.
Because
I think that we wouldn't.
There's a lighthouse out along the coast that we've been to before. We've never been to the lighthouse, but it's way out there. And they do invite couples to watch over the lighthouse
for a week.
Property for a week at a time.
Yeah.
It's only a week. I could definitely do that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It would be, what a glorious vacation it would be.
But I also think I can make a year work. Because in the end, it's $1 million. And yes, you're on an island, but if we're going to an island with a nice house on it, that house is not going to look
Can I at least
like
have
our
my
apartment.
laptop so that I don't have to handwrite? I can at least type the ideas that come through my head.
You get a typewriter.
Fuck you. Fuck you. Because then I'd run out of tape and or ribbon.
Nah, you get a laptop.
Give me a working laptop.
You get a working laptop, but still no Wi-Fi.
You'd go crazy just as much as I do. Because you know what your problem would be, sir, is that you and I would be sitting around on our little island front porch one day, rocking in our rocking chairs as the gulls around us and all that shit. And it'd be perfectly lovely and content. And then I would say to you, gee, I wonder when Coca-Cola was first invented. And then you wouldn't be able to immediately pull up your phone and just figure out exactly when. Or what was the question you poured over yesterday? Happy birthday. When Happy Birthday entered public domain.
Yeah.
And in relation to a New Girl episode
of New Girl.
Yeah. And that would happen. And you wouldn't be able to look that shit up. And you would go crazy. Because you are a very curious human being.
I would take a notebook with me and make a list of everything I want to look up.
Yeah, until I got mad at you and I horked it off the side of a cliff into the ocean.
Why are you getting mad at me?
You and I stuck together in a house for a year. We're gonna fight.
We're already stuck in this house for 10 years.
Oh, God, and we have fought in this house. And not to say that our marriage is in any way a cantankerous marriage. You and I don't fight that often. Luckily, we have a lot of dumb nothing fights, if anything, but we don't have a lot of serious. Anyways, that doesn't matter. That's a whole for another podcast. But my point is that you and me, just you and me, for 1 month, alone together in a space the size of half the block, and we couldn't leave it, and had nobody else to talk to.
You don't think we could even last a month?
I don't think. Before you pissed me off to the point that I was screaming at you, absolutely not.
But what am I doing?
I don't know. It would be something really stupid and asinine. It would be something completely innocuous. You know, it would be you leaving your beard trimmings in the sink or me leaving my hair on the side of the shower.
Let's be honest. Nobody's shaving in this situation. We're a year in isolation.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah.
Maybe, we're eating, we're cooking, so it might be fights about, I don't want to cook.
I don't want to do the dishes.
I don't want to do the dishes.
What do you mean we're having, meatloaf again? I'll kill you. I don't know. I just think couples fight. It is a normal part of everyday relationships. I think that you and I would have a hard time not being able to not be away from each other, right? Because sometimes you get annoyed with your partner and you're like, all I need right now is an hour and a half away from them.
Maybe it's a big enough house where there are multiple bedrooms, so if you needed to, there's another bedroom to sleep in. There's another wing of the house to stay in.
Well, going back to whether or not you and I could survive at the Overlook Hotel,
which is massive.
Minus the ghosts.
Minus the ghosts, please.
For 5 months. I think that would be
minimum
a lot of fun.
5 months, but hey, if
but
we have any...
just how far she had to walk from the kitchen to the servants' quarters.
Yeah.
Like, we all have been in big hotels. You go to Vegas and you get out of your car in a parking structure.
My feet would hurt so bad.
It's an hour and a half to your hotel room.
I couldn't imagine looking over like a Vegas
hotel that fucking
That's too big.
You'd have to shut down entire floors.
That's too big.
Just like we're never going above the 10th floor for any reason.
Never. So if there's anybody out there listening to our podcast and you need your house watched for a year
on a secluded island,
minimum, I'm gonna make it $2 million now.
Yeah,
minimum $2 million for a year. To
$1 million each.
Yeah, sure.
Easily.
And
yeah, you don't have to provide Wi-Fi. You do have to provide food. And just, give us a punching bag is all I'm saying.
Well, maybe they have a gym. I
am a more fiery, passionate person than you are, so I would get upset more often.
It's an island. I'd be out in the water.
Well, it would depend on... if it's an island in the North Atlantic, you're not going to be out in the water.
Maybe it's an island...
if it's a tropical island. Oh, fucking of course we could do that. Are you kidding? Like, okay, honey, I'm just going to go swim for a week.
No, but you're right. If it's like on the East Coast or even the West Coast, there's going to be a good chunk
winter's
of time
going to be fucking bitter.
That sucks to even be outside.
Yeah, and
so
you're just
stuck inside for a long time. I'd still try it.
I would try it.
For $2 million?
Give me the internet. That's all I mean. Like, why can't I have the internet?
I don't know. I guess I'm trying to keep away from just the excuse of just staring at your phone or a computer for
that does get boring, though.
It does get boring. It's true. You do want to do other things, but I guess you also would like to know what's happening outside of your world.
Yeah.
Since you are so isolated.
Maybe like once every 2 weeks, we would each get 5 hours on the internet, or you get every month you get 10 hours of internet, so you have to kind of like space it out, right? That would be fair. I don't know. Like, I could do it, and it sounds like right now it sounds lovely because we've got 2 jobs and we've got 2 kids and we're, always struggling to survive, and the world's a dumpster fire. And if somebody came along and said, here's $1 million each for you guys to go to this house in the fucking, way out in the island somewhere, some nice, beautiful Pacific Northwest island, and you've got the entire island to yourself in this big old house, and we want you to watch it for a year. Fuck yeah, I'd sign up for that in a heartbeat. Would I regret it a lot? Sure. Would I love it a lot? Absolutely. I think that I would love it more than I ever regretted it, but I am just saying cabin fever is a real thing. It would be hard to stave off, and if I could not at least talk to my therapist twice a month, our marriage would be in deep shit.
Oh yeah, I think we should still have access to phones.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, Wi-Fi is probably an okay thing. I was just trying to make it.
I know you're trying to make it really secluded and old-fashioned.
I wanted to keep it, secluded and old-fashioned.
Do you have any other points about The Shining that you would like to?
I mean, sure. I made a lot of notes. But
I made a lot of my notes were, dear God, how is this movie still happening? I will say the grossest thing said in this movie was when Jack referred to his wife as, and I quote, a sperm bank.
Sperm bank.
That made my whole body go, and then they
followed
it up very closely with a lot of N words.
Well, yeah, Grady and Jack were, they both, I think the N-word was said 3 times.
Yeah.
Between the two of them.
Which is 3 times too many.
And it was so pointless, too. Like, there was no reason why all of a sudden...
They're just dropping hard R's there.
Yeah. Like what? Because they're white guys in the 80s?
Yeah. Actually, because,
Because people suck?
Yeah.
I was like, is it to show how big of an asshole Jeeves and Jack are? Or is it just because Kubrick is an asshole and that's something he would put in his movie?
Yes.
Probably yes to both.
Yeah. Oh, I did want to know who was the poor intern that had to type up all of those pages of all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
Those were so fun to look at just because of the different style of paragraphs. Some looked like scripts, some looked like novelization.
Yeah, but they were all hand typed clearly.
And there were spelling mistakes in certain parts.
According to Vivian Kubrick in her making of, I assume, The Shining, Stanley Kubrick's secretary spent weeks, if not months, typing dozens of pages. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy for the scene where Wendy discovers those pages. So it was the secretary, which is a bit of a bummer. Another scene that you and I really appreciated and were curious how it happened was when Jack is looking at the model of the hedge maze.
Yeah.
Then it shows, it kind of zooms in and you see Danny and Wendy in the middle of it, and then you join them in the middle of the scene. According to IMDb, the only shot in the film not achieved in camera was the slow zoom in on the model of the maze, with the tiny figures of Danny and Wendy walking around at the center. To achieve this shot, a model of the maze was shot from 6 feet above. Then the small central section of the maze was built to scale next to an apartment complex. Shelley Duvall and Danny Lloyd then walked around the central section while the camera crew filmed it from the roof of the apartment building. The 2 shots were then simply composited together. So that was a scene that I was thoroughly impressed by. And again, I'm not shitting on the although Stanley Kubrick himself is a huge asshole, and I don't know, maybe I find his directed style a bit pretentious, it was still a very interestingly shot film. Obviously,
sure.
the cinematography, the art direction, the set direction was all really beautiful. But I do have to give it to, there were a lot of really beautiful shots in that movie that I was quite impressed by, that being one of them. And then lastly, Stephen King has never understood why people find this movie so scary, and I agree with him on that point.
If
I'd have seen this movie as a kid, I would have been fucking terrified. As an adult who has seen scarier shit, I'm like,
I think even as
it.
a teenager or a young adult in the 1980s.
Yeah, sure.
When I saw this
you don't
movie,
see shit like that.
When I saw this movie, it disturbed me a little bit.
I guess.
The lady in the bath creeped me out.
Yeah, because you just didn't want to see old titties and old bush. I'll excuse myself now.
I saw this movie, I think I was 18, 19, maybe 20.
Mm-hmm. You're a young man.
Because when I watched Twister, which came out in 1996,
yes,
I was 15 years old.
Yes.
And when I saw the scene at the drive-through, the drive-in theater of Danny going around the corner, and you see the twins standing there, I was like, what is this movie? I've never seen this movie. I was like, I wonder what movie this is.
I knew that it was The Shining because of the Here's Johnny thing, because even at a young age when I saw Twister, that was already prevalent in pop culture.
But they didn't show the Here's Johnny part.
Yeah, they do. They show it when the tornado is ripping about.
I thought he was just cutting. I thought he was hacking it down.
No, you don't hear him say "Here's Johnny" because you hear just the roar of the tornado.
But he's using the axe.
You see the axe and you see him stick his head in and look around.
So I was setting a timer this time while I was watching
That's what
the
the timer was for. I'm so curious.
I wanted to see how much time went between Danny going around the corner and seeing the girls to the moment that Jack Nicholson was breaking down the door with the axe.
It's well over an hour, right?
It's an hour and 10 minutes.
So they cut out a lot from that scene in Twister because they made it seem like it was 10 minutes later.
Like 10 minutes. The idea was they got there.
Yeah.
And immediately Bill Paxton goes up and grabs like some hot dogs at some kind of food stand or something.
Yeah, like coffee or something.
And then they immediately get hit by a tornado.
Yes.
And so I had to know because I've always known that there's a big space between
those two scenes.
Yeah. But now officially an hour, 10 minutes, and 36 seconds.
I clocked that you had a timer going, and I was like, what the fuck does he have this timer going for? But I had that same thought, which is like the time between the scenes with the twins to the tornado it's not that long in Twister, but it's a long fucking time in the movie. Mm-hmm. But this movie felt like it was 3.5 days long. This movie felt like I spent a year on an island watching it. And at 2.5 hours, you know what could have cut down this movie a lot? Was just the slow establishing scenes where it would just have, a set piece for 5 seconds, and then finally Jack Nicholson walks into it while the music's being all shrill and annoying. Like, if they had cut those 5 seconds across the board, this movie you could have shaved off 45 minutes of this film. You and I have argued at length about what I think is the perfect length of a movie, which is just not that long. Unless it's a movie that I care about, in which case, make it 14 hours.
Those are called short films.
See, this is why we would have an argument. I would be doing something annoying as my way, and you would get bothered with me, or you would say something snarky, and I would take it the wrong way, and I would come after you. You and I could not survive a year in isolation, just the two of us.
Still want to try it.
I mean, I would try it because you are also my best friend, and I love spending time with you.
We would have
80% of the time, we would have a great fucking time.
Yeah,
we'd have a great fucking time.
But that 20% if the tension got built up, and we felt like we were really getting upset, that's when you kind of go your own way.
Yeah.
It's big enough. You can't do that in a small apartment.
Well, no. Like, if the house was the size of our apartment right now, the answer is no.
No,
absolutely not. But, like, if it was a nice enough house, a large home, at least 4 bedrooms, if there was a space, you were in the study listening to your music, your records, and I was downstairs in the living room on the couch typing away on my laptop, then yes, you and I think would be just fine. If we were in the same room glaring at each other.
If we had to spend a year in just one room,
like the size of our living room,
then no.
We wouldn't last 4 days.
No. We need things to do.
Everybody needs space.
We need things to do. We need somewhere to go.
Yeah.
And I don't mean go as far as like I need to go to the movies or I need to go out and be social.
It'd just be a massive change
I just need to go
scenery.
somewhere else in the area. And like you said, winter
would be rough.
Winter would be rough unless we're in a tropical area.
Yeah.
But even then, even in tropical still gets tropical storms and humidity, and that's when you still don't want to be outside.
To be fair, nothing makes you and I grumpier quite like humidity.
That's true.
So the tropics would be bad
because
it would be
maybe what I need is like a steam room, an indoor pool,
a sauna,
a
pool would be nice.
An indoor pool, especially.
Oh God, I'd swim every single day. I'd wake up in the morning, have breakfast, 2-hour swim every day, and then I would work on a book and I would nap. I'd be a queen of napping. I would tell myself I was going to read, but in reality, I would not. I would take 15 books with me and I wouldn't even get in through the first chapter of one of them. Because as much as I loved reading as a kid, my ADHD these days is just like, nah, brah. I crack open a book and I'm immediately put to sleep. Maybe you and I could do it without shining each other, but it's hard to say.
I know the majority of this podcast has been you and me. You either shitting on the movie or us talking about whether or not we'd be able to spend a long period of time in isolation. But real fast, I really like this movie because of the music, because of the visuals, the cinematography is amazing, the production,
I'm
design,
not saying it's a
set
badly
decoration,
made
it's
film.
all I know. And yes, it's not scary anymore because of the things that we are so used to seeing, not only in real life, but also horror movies, modern horror movies are...
I mean, they're crazy these days.
They're getting even crazy because they have to. They got to make it even...
Yeah,
they got to push
amp it up.
the boundaries even more and more because people are getting more used to the horror aspect of it. I recently just watched a couple movies that people were just saying were some of the best horror movies of the year. One of them was The First Omen.
Mm-hmm.
Another one was the one with Sweeney. Immaculate.
Oh, yeah.
And then another one was I Saw the TV Glow. And all three of them, they were fine.
God, that's
people are like, horror movies of 2024. These are some of the best horror movies that have been out in a long time. And they didn't. All three of them, there weren't any moments where they scared me.
Yeah.
There's some moments where they were a little disturbing. I don't remember which one, but I remember a hand coming, like a monster's hand coming out of a woman's vagina.
Well, yeah, that's scary on all accounts, for several reasons. I mean, just imagine the yeast. See, I would make a joke like that, and you would storm across to another wing of the house and not talk to me for a week.
I like the performances in it. Yes, Jack Nicholson's very Jack Nicholson in it.
Yeah.
But I think it fits for his character. I like what Shelley Duvall did, even though it was coaxed by a lot of
trauma.
Kubrick being traumatizing or treating her poorly.
Yeah.
But it did turn out to be...
I mean, well, Jack Nicholson called it one of the greatest performances he's ever seen from an actor, but he also saw what she went through to get it.
Yeah.
And there were a handful of people on the set that were like, maybe you shouldn't be that mean to her, but Kubrick was like, nobody give her comfort, nobody give her, like, he alienated her from the cast. Like, he fucked her for that role. Yeah, it's a great performance, but is it necessary? I wonder how Rebecca De Mornay does in the fucking Shining miniseries that they put out that Stephen King likes more than this one. Yeah,
Dr. Sleep was a movie that he was present during the filming of because he wanted to make sure it was being done right.
But it is a sequel to The Shining.
It is a sequel to The Shining, the movie,
yes.
not even though his book is a sequel to his book.
Yeah.
But the Dr.
movie.
Sleep, the movie, is a sequel to The Shining, the movie.
Done by, I think, Mike Flanagan, who does all those really crazy horror things.
He did.
And so, and that was something else that I was thinking about while we were watching The Shining, is there's so many beautiful establishing shots of the hotel. And I was thinking, a modern director, and specifically Mike Flanagan himself, would have put ghosts hiding in those scenes the way that he did in The House on Hunting Hill, and then the other one, the Bly Manor or whatever it was called, where like you're watching a scene and then you're like, shit, there's a ghost just standing there in the corner. Like that would be what a modern director would do to make the Overlook seem overrun with ghosts, as every scene would have a ghost in it, just hidden in some capacity, right? And it would take multiple viewings to be like, oh, did you see the guy behind the clock? And oh, there's the person under the stairs. And oh, there's that weird face over Jack Nicholson's shoulder. Like, I don't want to say lesser directors, but modern directors would do that to amp up the spookiness. And so I'm kind of glad that wasn't there, but I was sort of expecting that while watching this film, because you'd see an establishing shot of the hotel, and like it would make sense to have a creepy ghost in the corner that you barely see, you know, and your eyes kind of drawn to it and it cuts away. I don't know. Like,
you know, another thing that I'll just say about the scariness of The Shining is, and it, once again, it probably is because it was made in 1980 and now we're in 2024.
Yeah.
But, and it's only because you accidentally said House on Haunted Hill.
Yeah.
Instead of Mike Flanagan's The Haunting of Hill House.
Oh, God, what the fuck ever. Is that not the same story?
No.
It's not?
No, not at all.
Ugh.
But there is,
Ugh.
obviously there's The House on Haunted Hill from 1999 with Jeffrey Rush, which I do love, which does still kind of creep me out because there are some scary elements, especially in the basement in that movie.
But the original one.
The original one
Vincent
from
Price.
1959.
Right.
With Vincent Price.
That's a pretty fucking legit movie.
But it's not scary.
No.
But in 1959,
I bet it was terrifying.
There's this great shot of a woman who's not in the frame because the camera's on a different actress.
Mm-hmm.
And the camera starts panning out and you see this woman just staring at the actress with her hands up like claws, and she's just like snarling at her almost, but without saying a word. But it's just this silent thing that's done when you're not expecting it, so it is kind of startling. And then the woman like drifts away to the side without walking.
Yeah,
and
they're
just pulling her on a dolly kind of thing. But it's things like that I'm sure 1959 probably scared the shit out of people.
And if I were to watch The First Omen, I would probably be fucking terrified. But it does make me curious, though, as we kind of near the end of this podcast. This is one of the many films that I was not looking forward to because I don't like horror. Which, at this point, you could start a drinking game for the amount of times I say that in our different horror podcast themes.
So drunk right now.
So drunk right now. That's the other thing we'd need on that island is copious amounts of whiskey.
I need a bartender.
Yeah.
Or at least bar supplies. I know how to make drinks.
Yeah. Just whiskey aplenty. One of the things that I worry about when it comes to watching the rest of the horror films on this list is I'm so automatically, viscerally against them that I don't know if I'm going to be able to go into Hereditary with an open mind. Because again, it's one of those things too that like, nobody ever shut up about how great Get Out was, right? And nobody ever shut up about how great Midsommar was. And nobody has fucking shut up for the last 35 years, 40 years? Over 40 years now, about how great The Shining is. And nobody fucking ever shuts up about how incredible Hereditary is. And like, I go into these movies expecting to be terrified, and I just come out being like, meh? I mean, Get Out was disturbing, but not that scary. Midsommar made me laugh, and I loved it, but I never found it spooky. This movie was not scary. It was just annoying. Like, and am I going to, like, what's going to happen when I watch Hereditary? Am I going to be eating my words and be like, I was so fucking crazy? Or is it because I know the story to it, too? Because that's the other problem, is I know the stories to all these films. Am I going to be watching that poor girl get her head knocked off by a telephone pole giggling in the corner? So I don't know, man. Obviously this podcast has opened my mind when it comes to a lot of these films that I haven't seen before, but a lot of them I go into knowing I'm not going to like, and I come out of them hating. And is that my problem?
No, not entirely. I mean, you don't like horror films, which is not your problem. Because
it's my right.
You don't need to like them. Nobody has to like anything that they don't want to.
Yeah.
Also, a lot of people do hype up things that they are passionate about. And
talk to me about Frasier. I'll hype that shit up forever.
If people, years go by and people just keep telling you, just give it a shot, You'll love it. You'll love it. It's the best. It's The Shining is considered one of the top 10 best horror films of all time.
Why?
I think because of the time and place it was made.
Yeah. They didn't even like it in the time and place that it was made. It was a cult classic that grew over time. It was enjoyed, but it wasn't.
But even by the 90s, it was enjoyed. It wasn't like it took 40 years.
No.
But it happens even when studios hype up movies.
Yeah.
Longlegs recently came out this year, and people...
Oh, people were hyping that up
People
crazy.
were hyping it out, and there were a bunch of people who didn't like it because it wasn't living up to the hype. It also wasn't scary.
Yeah.
Longlegs was a psychological thing. Same thing with Get Out, and I believe even because Midsummer wasn't really scary.
No, it was funny,
and it was a little disturbing in parts. And I think the same thing can be said about Hereditary. It's not, to me, Hereditary is not that scary. There are so many scarier movies that we could be watching, but I'm not going to make you watch them because I know that they're too scary.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching Paranormal Activity through the holes of an Afghan.
Yes, a movie like that is a little more. We're not going to watch. I'm not going to make you watch any of the James Wan movies.
Yeah,
I'm not going to make you watch some of the more.
I will never watch any of the Saw films because I don't do torture porn either.
I think Mike Flanagan's Haunting of Hill House has scarier moments in it than a lot of.
Yeah, and I won't watch that because it looks terrifying.
We
started the Bly Manor one, but we never finished it.
Because I'm not really claustrophobic.
Mm-hmm.
I can do pretty well in a tight space.
Mm-hmm.
But it's because I know I can get out. Yeah. I can leave. I can get out of it.
I'm fairly claustrophobic. I don't like
going underground. If for a moment I believe that I'm stuck, then I'm not going to do well. So when it came to me watching As Above, So Below, which just deals with people going deep under Paris into the catacombs and crawling through spaces that are smaller than they are.
Don't like it.
Exactly. And so every time they go further and further and they look down another hole that they have to go down, which is just black, it's not something I'm excited about.
Yeah.
And it really builds up the tension and makes my palms sweat. But I still bought the movie because of the way it makes me feel.
Yeah. But why do you like that?
Because I like feeling like I don't have control. Because I'm in my living room and I'm fine.
Yeah.
And seeing it on the TV is how I can experience something that I know I wouldn't be able to handle in real life.
No, I don't.
With or without the spirits. I don't believe in ghosts.
I want to feel like I'm not in control. I'm doing it on a roller coaster and it only takes 90 seconds.
I don't believe in ghosts, demons, or hell, but when I watch As Above, So Below...
I don't believe in ghosts.
I do. Not to the extent that you do.
Dude.
There are certain...
Yeah, I do love a good ghost story.
There are certain things that I'm like, okay, that's weird.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no explanation. But
you don't believe in the paranormal?
Not really, because I believe if the paranormal is to exist, then that means that there's another world after death.
Well, I guess this might need to be a conversation off mic because this might be another hour tacked on to the episode.
We're going to get into religion and what's the other? Theology, more than
the afterlife.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So
anyway,
but what about something like the footage that you've it's because our son and my son and I love to watch what we refer to as a spooky. So we watch an episode of Ghost Hunters, we watch an episode of Ghost Brothers, or any of those shows where people send in. Oh, hello, son. Speak of the devil. Any of those shows where people send in footage of their Ring camera catching a ghost and shit. You don't believe any of that's real?
There's some interesting phenomenons that cannot be explained by some people because we just don't have the knowledge. When you have somebody who has more experience in the way light interacts with camera lenses, when you have experienced people who understand the way light and cameras, especially cameras that are filming at night.
Yeah.
There's some things. I've seen some things on Instagram where
there's some spooky
you see a kid sitting in a chair. That is a kid sitting in a chair. and then they get up and leave, and they just kind of like dissolve into the air.
Yeah.
Or the other day, I saw one of a person walking out of their door, turned the corner, and a little kid ran by, and when the person went to go chase them, there's nothing there except for a wall.
Mm-hmm.
So where did that kid go? And then somebody down in the comments is like, if you look really closely, you can see when the footage morphs to a different scene.
God.
It transitions so smoothly.
So you think most of it's fake?
You're either, a lot of it is fake. A lot of it is
I've
fake.
seen some spooky shit
There's
on
some
TikTok.
spooky shit. There's some of the paranormal people are just after a paycheck, and they'll make whatever
look at
footage
Zach
or
Bagans, that piece of
audio
shit.
that they can produce whatever they want, because I'm not there. I don't know what was actually happening that night. If I experienced something personally.
What about those footsteps we heard at that hotel on my birthday?
That was fun.
That
was a fun experience.
Yeah.
And there's no explanation for it. Maybe there was somebody up there. Maybe there was, even though
could have just been rats.
Upstairs is nothing.
Probably just rats.
There's nothing upstairs except for
there wasn't even
an attic or
there
a
wasn't
roof.
even an attic. It was just the roof.
So I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting.
A lot of it's unexplained. It's just like aliens. Can I prove that the existence or the non-existence of aliens right now as we sit?
I mean, the government has come out and said that aliens are real, and collectively this country went, yeah, we can't.
They said UFOs are real.
Yeah.
They didn't say aliens are real. There's a difference between UFOs and aliens.
Is there?
A little bit.
Aliens terrify me. You want to watch a scary movie? You want to put on a scary movie that I will fucking not watch anything involving aliens?
I believe that there is a possibility of aliens existing out in the universe because the universe is infinity big.
Yeah.
And if it can happen, if science and nature can create a world like ours, it can happen again. Science says that it can happen again in a whole nother universe, but it's so far away that it's the physics say it's impossible for an alien race to visit us.
But then we get spice.
But then you talk about, you get spice. Now, I do believe there could be things like wormholes, which are
wormholes
still
do exist. But
there's never been any proof that anything's ever traveled through a wormhole. Who knows? I saw another video today where somebody was like, proof Sasquatch is real. And I was like,
oh, I've seen some fucking very, very convincing evidence at Bigfoot and his
there was
existence.
this video, and I think I sent it to you last night. I don't know if you ever watched it.
No, I haven't.
But it's essentially, you just see this massive tree log that's already on the ground. It's already fallen.
Yeah.
And a human being would not be able to just lift it.
Yeah.
And this thing just gets lifted up into the air and then just slammed back down onto the ground.
I've seen that.
And I don't know if it was computer faked or if a machine was on the other side and different audio was used. I don't know. It's an Instagram video. I can't prove the legitimacy of it or not.
I've seen some pretty spooky, I've seen some images of big feet that are just like, damn.
So there's some stuff in the world
there's some.
And I enjoy going with you to haunted hotels and spending the night in them or just going on a tour through them.
And
it's a lot
I'm
of
glad
fun.
that you enjoy it. See, because that's where I get my jollies, right? I want to see a ghost. It would be fucking terrifying, but I want to see a ghost, or I want to hear about your own particular ghost stories. I fucking love people telling me their ghost stories.
Hearing people's ghost stories is entertaining.
Yeah.
I have no reason to say that they're liars. It's just that a lot of things that are caught on camera can be explained as other things.
That's fair.
And I've seen plenty of the
corridor
viral... Well, those, yes. But I've seen a lot of viral ghost videos be disproven by just people who are professionals in videotaping and lenses and light and
well, that's fair.
Since
it's been about the length of The Shining, since we've talked about The Shining, do you want to go ahead and rate this fucker and we can get on with our lives?
Yeah, I think this film is just as popular as we did we did Finding Nemo. Finding Nemo was a hugely popular movie. Shining is as well.
They even make a Shining reference in Finding Nemo. Here's Brucey.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Wow.
What?
Totally forgot about that.
Anyways, what do you rate this movie?
I give this movie 4 stars.
Okay.
And I've already explained why.
And I give it 2 stars, and I've already explained why. So that's where we're at.
Well,
guys.
there you have it.
Yeah. Not for me.
Honest reviews.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us.
Oh, honest movie trailers. Somebody should do something like that.
Hey,
yeah.
Great idea for a YouTube channel. So, Maggie.
Yes, Caveman.
I have 2 questions for you.
Oh, please.
I want Oscar Isaac to breastfeed me.
That's from... Stop it. Cat, I swear to God. That's from the John Boyega and Oscar Isaac read thirst tweets about themselves on BuzzFeed.
Yes.
I know that off the top of my head.
Of course you do.
Play it again, please.
I want Oscar Isaac to breastfeed me.
I do too.
So, would the presence of Oscar Isaac have made The Shining a better movie?
Oh, God, yes. Because at least I would have been able to look at his sweet, beautiful face.
And question number 2, which character would you have had Oscar Isaac play?
I think that if they remade this movie, I think he would make an excellent Jack Torrance. Going back to, I've spoken about it oftentimes, the madness of Oscar Isaac, but he would definitely come across more as the polite, kind, struggling family man and not the insane human being that Jack Nicholson just is. And so watching his descent into madness would be most entertaining.
Right, because the beginning of the movie, you'd be like, oh, how could this sweet
how could this sweet man
turn into anything
perfect human being with a jawline that could cut glass? Then I think that you could get maybe like Jessica Chastain as the wife, as Wendy. It's not too unheard of that they would have young kids at this point, or I guess, you could get a younger actress, as is the way of Hollywood, to play Wendy, and, cute little kid. And I think that it would be very interesting to see a remake of The Shining. I know they did it for like CBS or something way back ago.
It was a short TV series.
Yeah, it was a miniseries.
Yeah.
Which I kind of miss miniseries.
Yeah, HBO still does miniseries.
Yeah.
But other than them, not a lot of people.
No, they're all streaming
Netflix
these days.
kind of does miniseries.
But it's not like the way that, it would be a television event on NBC over the course of 2 nights or 2 weeks where all of America would sit down and watch James Earl Jones play the King of England or some shit like that.
I think the last big one that a lot of people watched that wasn't, I don't think it was just streaming, I think it was on network television, was the whole O.J. Simpson trial.
Oh, yeah, that was on FX. Yeah.
Close enough. Not necessarily streaming.
But
it was on...
I guess I just miss, like, the network miniseries, or where they would, like, reimagine, Wizard of Oz, or, they did a Roots remake, and I just sort of, I don't know, I kind of miss that, where you're like, oh, we got to tune in for this shit. But TV doesn't work that way anymore. But yeah, I would like to see Oscar Isaac as Jack Torrance, because at the very least, watching him go insane would make my pants happy. And that has been this week's episode of Movie Mingle that we hope that you enjoyed just as much as we've enjoyed making it for you. Again, my friends, art is decisive, and just because somebody loves something doesn't mean that the next person is going to, even if it is universally beloved, until I come along and go, what the fuck is this bullshit? I hate it. But that's Maggie for you, and if you didn't like it, you wouldn't be listening. So thanks for listening. We appreciate each and every one of you. Coming up, we've got Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is Quentin Tarantino's most recent film, I believe. Yeah, I'm getting a head nod. And it is a 9.5 hour long epic about the Hollywood of Quentin Tarantino's dreams. And it's a movie that I actually thoroughly enjoy and look forward to watching again with Caveman and talking about. So join us next Wednesday for that. Later this month, we've got yet another spooky Halloween episode coming for you. And we hope that you enjoy that when it hits. And until then, you can always find us on Threads, Instagram, and Letterboxd at MovieMinglePod. You can find us on YouTube at MovieMinglePodcast, and you can always write us at movieminglepod@gmail.com to discuss your favorite horror films, whatever they may be. Until then, friends, just take good care of yourselves. Don't go into any abandoned hotels. Don't listen to any ghosts in the corner, and go mingle. Bye!
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
That the power of Christ compels you! They're coming to get you, Barbara.
They're here.
Here's Johnny. Happy Halloween.